Hello, my name is Andrew Thake from Resourcing Tomorrow. Delighted to be joined with us today by Michael Naylor, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of EV Metals Group.
Good day, Andrew. How are you?
Yeah, great to go and have you on the show. Can you tell us a little bit about EV Metals Group?
EV Metals Group is building a global battery materials and technology business committed to a clean energy future. We are focused on the production of high purity chemicals and battery materials for electric vehicle manufacturers in global markets targeting Europe and North America.
And can you give us an update about EV Metals Group's key developments in the last 12 months?
We have had an extraordinary year in advancing our business model and strategy, and that is building global supply chains that integrate upstream, midstream, and downstream supplies of critical raw materials from in situ minerals through to cathode active materials. In January, we launched the Australian Lithium Alliance, which is a strategy and an initiative by EV Metals Group to partner with Australian mining companies to fund and fast-track exploration, development, and mining and processing of critical raw materials in situ. In this case, it's lithium. Midstream, we have advanced the development of the first 2 trains of lithium hydroxide monohydrate for our battery chemicals complex in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I think we're 85% through front-end engineering design, and we are scheduled to start construction of the first stage of the lithium chemicals plant in the Kingdom in Q2 2023. I think the most important milestone achieved by our company this year was earlier in May with the acquisition of the global assets of the battery materials and technology assets of Johnson Matthey. That has and does complete the opportunity for EV Metals Group to integrate upstream with the midstream and downstream processing capacity to produce high purity chemicals and cathode active materials specifically for electric vehicle manufacturers.
Mm-hmm. I mean, so the acquisition of the Johnson Matthey Batteries Metals business, I can see how it's going to be absolutely transformational. Can you just tell us a little bit about the opportunity the energy transition provides for the critical minerals sector?
Cathodes are, in our view, the terminal market for lithium, and equally importantly, nickel, cobalt, and manganese in high energy density cathode active materials. In addition, we have the opportunity through the battery technology centres that we've acquired from Johnson Matthey, the opportunity to produce also lower energy density, that's the lithium ferrous phosphate cathode active materials. We're seeing huge structural deficits emerge in global supplies of cathode active materials into Europe out to 2030, where I think demand is forecast at approximately 1.4 million tonnes per annum, and we're seeing a structural deficit in that sector in Europe of 600,000 tonnes of CAM. There's been a massive build-out of battery cell manufacturing capacity in Europe. As we see it, there's nowhere near the midstream or downstream processing capacity in Europe to satisfy the demand that will come from those battery cell manufacturing plants. Hence, we see a strategic opportunity for our company by integrating upstream, midstream, and downstream supply chains to deliver into that growing structural deficit.
Can you provide insight on the current supply chain for critical minerals? What are the key risks you see with the way things currently are?
The key risks are, in fact, firstly, the mining sector. We see huge opportunities for exploration and mining companies over the remainder of this decade and beyond. And that is to find and develop the critical minerals required to supply the growth in demand by electric vehicle manufacturers as the energy transition progresses. Secondly, I think that there is massive undercapacity in midstream and downstream in Western economies. Clearly, China dominates those two sectors in midstream and downstream, and the challenge for the transition to electrification is to see a build out of midstream and downstream processing capacity outside China. And with that, the geopolitical alignment of supply chains that go into Europe and North America. Going with that as well, we see around the emission targets not being met unless there is clearly an increase in both production and processing capacity from upstream, midstream, and downstream suppliers. For electric vehicle manufacturers, I think that the real challenge, and certainly the challenge we're stepping up to, is to integrate supply chains for electric vehicle manufacturers. That is not something that they would find easy to do. For example, we see electric vehicle manufacturers, for example, entering into offtake agreements to acquire, for example, spodumene concentrate containing 6% lithium oxide, and from mines in Western Australia. The threshold question is, where will that SC6 be processed, that is converted to produce lithium hydroxide monohydrate? And then the next question is, where will that lithium hydroxide monohydrate be converted to cathode active materials? Our strategy is to build the midstream and downstream to take those outputs into a vertically integrated supply chain for electric vehicle manufacturers.
What do governments need to do to ensure that they have a secure and geopolitically aligned supply chains to meet their own EV targets? How can governments help support the development of supply chains?
I think that governments offering incentives in the form of subsidies and grants and, if you like, financial support in the form of guarantees go a long way to assisting companies to develop parts of the supply chain. I think the most important thing governments can now start to look at doing is aligning the global financial system in a way that supports, that is, funds companies that are integrating the supply chains. The great challenge, of course, is we see investment in upstream, that is mining, exploration, processing. We see investment in midstream and we see investment in downstream, but they aren't connected. So it's a question of how you connect those. The challenge is how to connect those supply chains to have an integrated supply chain that is directed to the specific markets and requirements of electric vehicle manufacturers. So in that context, I think there's work to do in public policy, and we're very open to working with governments to give them insights on how we think the supply chains can be connected to deliver integrated and transparent supplies into key growth markets in Europe and North America.
We started off our conversation talking a little bit about EV Metals Group, and you told us a little bit about the work that you've been doing over the last 12 months, and obviously the purchase of Johnson Matthey Battery Metals Business. But if you had to define what sets EV Metals Group apart from other companies in a similar space, what would you say?
Well, from what we understand, there aren't very many companies in this space outside China setting out to integrate upstream, midstream, and downstream supplies and supply chains for both high purity chemicals and cathode active materials for electric vehicle manufacturers. And the opportunity we see is, again, our customer is the electric vehicle manufacturer. Be clear about that. And I think what's important is we can deliver to electric vehicle manufacturers, because of that upstream, midstream, and downstream integration, a different pricing model, a different cost structure that will give them some control over, I think, the volatility of metal prices that sit in the battery packs that represent probably the largest cost to an electric vehicle manufacturer. And again, this is about scale and speed to market. And on that front, we're commencing the development of the world's first integrated battery chemicals complex in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, where we have and are co-locating a lithium chemicals plant, a nickel chemicals plant, and the capacity for precursor cathode active materials and cathode active materials. That will become a strategic global midstream hub and a great initiative that is born out of Vision 2030 in the Kingdom.
Well, thank you very much for your time today, Michael. You've got a great company, a great business, and we do really wish you all the best and look forward to seeing you at Resorting tomorrow. That was Michael Naylor, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of EV Metals Group.
Thank you, Andrew. I look forward to seeing you in London.